Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing a review of a new pen from an old brand that is now a new brand again, and that is Esterbrook, and the pen is the Estie. Now the Estie comes in this box. Mine got a little bit beaten up in the mail. Luckily the pen on the inside was okay. Sadly not the same couldn't be said for everything else that came in this particular parcel, but here it is nonetheless. So you take the cardboard sleeve off and you are left with this nice sort of fabric covered cardboard box with a magnetic closure on the lid, and it opens up and sort of opens out and you have the pen. The pen also comes with a little bit of sort of information. If you're interested in reading that, you can pause it. An ink cartridge, and it's a cartridge converter pen, so one standard international cartridge, and of course the converter that comes in the pen. So now, Esterbrook was one of America's leading pen brands, and after a few rough decades of being passed around a bit, it's recently been bought by Kenro Industries, which is a great move. Obviously, with a pen like this coming out on the market, it's shown a great sign of faith allows us to show a great sign of faith in the company. It was relaunched with this pen this year, which is 2008. Known as sort of the American pen, as the thing says there, it's established in 1858, reborn in 2018. So well done, Kenro, and thank you for keeping this pen brand alive and showing some respect to the pen brand, unlike a couple of other previous owners. Okay, so now this is the regular size of the pen. There is also an oversized version. I got this particular size because, well, it fits my purposes. I quite like it. This pen was, bought with my own money, and so giving it a fair and honest review here. So it's made of resin with a chrome trim, and if we just look at the parts of the pen, the finial and the end cap are both rounded in the same material as the pen, with a chrome clip there which is inlaid into the clip and secured on the inside. So this is a typical cigar-shaped pen and tapers towards each end, and it's a really lovely classic shape. It's a really traditional, classy-looking pen, and the resin that the pen is made from is really lovely. With these this is the cobalt blue, and you can see that those lovely flashes of that bright blue in the material. It's really, really very lovely. So it is a screw cap, and because of that there is a little step down from the cap to the pen body, but of course that's not an issue. And it's got what is like a cushioned sort of sealing mechanism. So there's actually like a little bit of, if I get it the right way, a little sort of spring in the resistance in the capping, which I think is really, really nice. It's got a great feeling to uncap, and of course capping it nice and secure. It's really very, very, very good. So the pen does post, but there's no need to, because the pen is of a pretty good size. So it's not a nice, it's secure, but it sort of feels like it's not going to be entirely secure sort of on there, but I don't think that will fall off if you posted it. But it is quite a decent sized pen with and without posting. So the section is made of the same material as the rest of the barrel of the pen, so the body of the pen, and there's some like little screws there and silver cap bands around the edge of the section, metal where the converter screws into, meaning you cannot eyedropper this pen. And the section itself is rather comfortable. It's not particularly wide, but it does taper slightly, but then it flares just at the end there, which is quite a nice sort of shape. As I said, the threads are shallow, so you don't feel them, and yeah, it's sort of a nice feeling in the hand to hold this pen. Now the branding on the pen is limited to two places. One on the nib, which is a number 6 size Yovo medium steel nib. Medium in this case, you can get other nib grades of course, but it's a lovely nib. Yovo obviously make their nibs for a lot of different brands, and this has been branded with Esterbrook 1858, which is nice, and it's very, very well tuned nib. Reminds me a lot of the nibs that come on the Aero, of course, which are also the Yovo nibs. The other branding on the pen is there around the bottom of the cap. It just says Esterbrook. Now that's sort of engraved in the resin and then filled with paint. So it's a really lovely, classy looking piece of branding. As I said, this is a cartridge converter pen, uses standard international, and which makes it really, really versatile with all the brands of cartridges you can get, but also converters. If the converter fails, it's easy to get another one. So let's talk about some stats. Now, the pen is 149 millimeters when it's capped. It's 127 when it's uncapped, and a very long 170 when it's posted. The section is between 10 and 11 millimeters, and the pen weighs a total of 24 grams, of which 15 are in the pen and 9 are in the cap. Now, the ink capacity will depend on the cartridge you get and the converter, but the standard converter that comes with this holds just over 1 milliliter, I think, from memory, and yeah, sort of standard converter. Let's do a couple of size comparisons now. So the standard size comparison, of course, for a lot of pens is the Lamy Safari. Now you'll notice this is a longer pen than the Safari, and but it's about the same sort of width, but it's a good sort of size pen. I'll just show all of these capped and then a couple of them uncapped alongside. Of course, here's the Pilot Metropolitan, another sort of slightly smaller pen. And then two pens I wanted to compare it to that were a little bit sort of, in a way, similar. One that it's been compared to a little bit is the Pen BBS pen. Just I think that's this is the 308, just because of that sort of basic shape. It's once again a little longer, a little more girthy, but it's a very, very different pen. Obviously, no cap band. The clip is very different as well. The other pen I wanted to compare it to was the Conklin All-American. Now, this is a much girthier pen. It's not quite as long, but it's another blue sort of resin pen with an inlaid clip from an American company. And both are really very, very nice pens. Now I'll just show this one sort of uncapped alongside, and you can see that they're both sort of similar sized pens in terms of length. Both have a number 6 size nib, and also have a similar width of section, but the barrel of the Conklin is a lot wider. Just so we can see the full comparison. Glad that didn't knock off the desk. Oh gosh. Of the Lamy Safari here. So uncapped, we get a pen that is actually slightly shorter than the Lamy Safari, but you know, a slightly sort of more uniform section, which makes the writing experience very, very pleasant. Now, one very, very interesting thing that you get with this, we don't get with this pen, but that is an accessory to this pen, is this, which is the MV adapter, which is sold separately. It's an alternative nib unit which allows you to use vintage Esterbrook nibs. Now, this is where the company have shown great respect to the original pen brand. So they've made a converter and section that will fit the nib unit of a vintage Esterbrook nib. And now, when you buy this pack, at the moment you get a nib, the section, and the converter. This is a rigid fine nib. It came in the little box which is in the bag. And these will cost you about $50 American. Now, that's not so bad, seeing as though you can, you know, just even the converter and the section alone, but to get a nib as well at the moment is a great, great deal. These nibs are available all over eBay, and there are vintage sellers who still have hundreds of these Esterbrook nibs around in a wide variety of different nib grinds. Esterbrook had one of the widest ranges of nib grinds on the planet, so the options are endless if you can find them. But we'll cover that a little bit in a second. So what I want to do is I want to do a writing sample with this pen, with the nib that came on it, the Yovo number 6. And then we'll talk a little bit about the adapter, and then a little bit more about the rest of the pen, the good, the bad, and yeah, a bit of a summary. So quickly do the writing sample. So what we have here is Esterbrook Estie. Now this is with a number 6 Yovo steel medium nib, and the ink is Waterman Serenity Blue. Now this is my standardized ink, pen testing ink. Here it is on a card, a bit of sheen there. It's a lovely, lovely blue. It just happens to be that it matches this pen beautifully. So let's just do a little bit of writing. So this is an exceptionally smooth nib. It writes beautifully, reliably, and apart from that little skip there, very, very reliably. And you know, it's quite wet. If I just do, you know, it puts down a really lovely amount of ink. Not super wet, it's not a gusher, but more than enough to allow for, as you can see a bit more close up, some nice sort of shading and depth of colour in that ink. Particularly if you look at these crosshatches here, you can see some lovely shading happening. Okay, let's give it a bit of a run for its money now. We'll do some fast writing. It's kept up well there. Now we'll just do some. So it does seem to be, and I've not found this up until today, the occasional little skip on the start of some of those downstrokes. But for the most part, this has been a very, very reliable, very nice, smooth, wet writing pen. Now, we'll just do a little bit of, as I'm a left-hander, I tend to try and do just a little bit of right-handed writing. So we'll go the writing around a tripod with my non-writing hand. Pretty messy, but gosh, that's smooth. That's really, there's actually very little feedback on this nib. It's not buttery smooth, but it's just really very, very lovely. Reverse writing, it's scratchy, and I think it would dry out fairly quickly, but you'd be able to get a few words out if you needed to. Now, in terms of flex, this is not a flexible nib. This is quite rigid. Pushing down, you can get a bit more ink out of the pen, but not really any line variation. And nor would you want to. It's just a beautiful writing, everyday writing nib. Now, one of the tests I like to do is writing under its own weight. And it's one of those pens that once it gets started, it's just going to keep writing and writing. But there have been, it's not gonna, there might be a ever so slight baby's bottom on this nib, just because it's been so smoothed, but it's certainly wet enough, and the flow is excellent enough to keep up with that if that was smoothed out. In terms of the balance of the pen, it's actually quite interesting. The pen is quite light, so the balance does lead down towards the nib, which is quite nice. It's well weighted in the hand, and when you post it, you don't feel it. You do certainly feel the weight of that cap there, but you don't feel like it's being sort of pulled back too much. Now, I want to do a very quick look at this other nib unit. So I'll just show you sort of what the process is. So simply remove the new nib unit and take the MV adapter here. And I've just left the sticker on there, so Not that I know, forget which one's which. And it simply screws in to the body of the pen. Now, I actually quite like the look of the black section on this pen. And they've left it black, I think, so that you can differentiate to which one is which. But the shape of the nib unit's slightly different. It's a bit more tapered. It's got a nice look to it, and I actually think it's really very nice. But we all know a nib is not about how it looks, it's about how it writes. And it's been uncapped for a little bit, but once it gets writing, there we go. It's very, very fine. It's very, very rigid. But you know, it's quite nice. It's not as smooth as a Yovo, but it is much finer, as you can see there. You know, like we're talking medium to a very, very fine, almost probably an extra fine. But what it does do is it lays down actually quite a considerable amount of ink. Like that's pretty, for me, that's pretty wet for such a fine nib. It's actually more, the writing is more saturated on this nib than it is on the Yovo. But an interesting little extra added bonus when you, well, not bonus, you do pay for it, but when you get this pen, something else that you can do with it. So we'll put the original back in now, and let's talk about the pen. Okay, so in the hand, this is a lovely pen. It writes beautifully. I'm exceptionally happy with it. I love that cushioned closure. I think there's a lot going for this pen. Let's talk about the price. Okay, so this pen, the MSRP is $195 American, but it is sold through online retailers such as Goulet Pens, where I got this. Shout out to Goulet. If you are one of the few people in the fountain pen world who don't know the Goulet Pen Company, check them out. They have an incredible range, amazing service, and even when things arrive beaten up, which is unusual for a Goulet Pens parcel because everything is packed so carefully for things to be damaged, but occasionally, you know, things are. But this pen arrived, you know, apart from the box, in perfect condition and ready to write, and they're fabulous. But is this price worth it? Well, you're getting a steel nib, 156 American plus, you know, postage and conversion, all that sort of stuff. Doesn't make it a cheap pen here in Australia, but I think the pen is worth it. It writes really well. It's got a lovely feel. It's a lovely looking pen, and I think it's something special. To relaunch with a pen like this is a great move by Kenro Industries. They've done an amazing job. So I think the pen is actually worth it. And then if you decide to get the you know, the adapter, you're still paying less than you would for a lot of other steel nib pens of this quality, and you get the extra nib option as well. So let's talk the good, the bad, and the, well, I won't say the ugly, because let's face it, there's nothing ugly about this pen. The finish is beautiful, it's been well polished, it's well made, the construction is great, all the parts are right. So I love the way the pen writes, I love the way it feels in my hand. All of these things make it one of the perfect pens for me. Even at this price point, I can't say that this is not totally worth the money. So what do I not like about the pen? Well, you know, there's not a lot. I like the nib. I think, you know, Yovo nibs are very sort of well thought of. As I said, this one is very smooth to the point where it might have a slight baby's bottom, but I haven't investigated that too much because it's not really been much of an issue until I use it on rhodia paper. I usually use paper with a bit more texture, so this is slightly different. But this pen has been with me for a few days. It's been written with a lot, and I have, you know, I think that this is a pen that will stay in my collection for a very long time. There's not really anything I don't like about the pen. I might smooth out that or remove that baby's bottom if it's there. I'll get it under a loop and see what's there, but really, and the fact that you can use that adapter and opens you up to a wide range of vintage nibs is so great. So this was the Esterbrook Estie. I'm not going to say it's a perfect pen, but it is about as close as a lot of pen brands have got, and seeing as though it's the first pen launched on the new Esterbrook label, hats off to Kenro. Great job. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below, my email or Instagram, which Instagram and Twitter. I am at @the_offstage_me. Please feel free to get in touch. If there's any way you want to support this channel, if you've got products you think I should be looking at, get in touch and let's see what we can do. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you later.